congratulations, a great performance today, and it's been really a pleasure watching you for all 3 days. Tell us why you came back.
Because last year sucked. Last year was no fun, it was a lot of pain, and I was pretty sure that if I came back it couldn't be any worse.
Well, there you have it from a champion.
You're listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, the show that invites you into the lives of people who make up the Ultra family. Here's your host for these conversations, Larry Ryan.
Thanks, MJ. Today I have an Ohana guest who holds a big place in my heart as I've crewed for and with him at various times. And he opened his door in the UK to me when I was visiting. But first, a quick word about my Ultra Tri-Fest coming to Whistler. Today's episode is brought to you by Ultra Tri-Fest Canada, where you can race the traditional 515, a 515 relay, or a 515 non-stop. There's also a 360K format, which does not require a crew. And because we are hosting you in Whistler, there is also an Ultra Gravel race. Check us out at ultratrifestcanada.com. And if you've always wanted to go to a 515 World Championship, check out the information on the website about our new Worldwide Championships, which is available to every 515 racer of all time. Again, that is at ultratrifestcanada.com, coming to Whistler, British Columbia in August 2024. My guest today has completed 10 Ironmans, a European long course, as well as numerous endurance cycling races and bikepacking adventures, one of which covered 3,300 kilometers in distance. I had the pleasure of crewing for him at two 520K Canada races in 2015 and 16, one of which he was the champion, and the other I'm sure we'll talk about as well. Together, we crewed for his wife, Katie, who was herself the women's champion of the 520K Canada in 2018. This man is my favorite UK friend who doesn't live in Penticton. Joining me today from Porta Palenza, Mallorca, it is Ross Welton.
Hello, and thanks for having me. And I will make my apologies for being ill and sounding very husky.
Oh, well, I'm sure it'll just make the ladies even more enthralled with you.
It'd be nice if there's a market for that somewhere.
Oh, I'm sure there is somewhere.
Yeah, if you look hard enough.
Well, as I just mentioned in that introduction, we first met at the Ultra 520K Canada, Steve Brown's race. You were there in 2015. The 2015 race for you was the one that made you come back in 2016. I know you were fully prepared, ready to go. You were going to make a run at that race. But like so many people in the 515, 520 world know, not every race comes out the way you plan. So tell us a little bit about that race where you did finish 10th overall. It was the same year where pro triathlete Kate Bevilaqua from Perth, Australia won the race outright. And she's going to be a guest in an upcoming episode as well. For people that know Kate, be ready to tune in for that in a short time. So tell us a little bit about that first 520 race that we went into.
That was a disaster, to be perfectly honest. I mean, actually, I was very prepared, as much as you can be without knowing what the event really entails until you're there. And actually having done it in 2015 is a huge advantage to then doing it in 2016. Competing gives you such a huge advantage. But I think I just misjudged everything about it. I know that for me, I just got so hot in the swim, for the 10K swim on the first part on day one. I got so hot because I didn't stop at any point for any kind of nutrition and any kind of pacing strategy. I just got so hot in the wetsuit, which I changed for the following year. And actually, I never really seemed to come back from that. I then just seemed to get worse and worse throughout the day. Culminating with quite a fantastic third day, which I think you probably walked about 60k of it with me, maybe more. I must have passed out 5 or 6 times. Yeah, it was just it was definitely character building, but it was not a race. It was a bit of a death march, really. But it was great. I have to say, it's an event I remember more than many others because of how badly it went and still managing to get to the finish line. I mean, on day 3, you'll remember, I think we got to the finish line with maybe a minute to spare. It was pretty pretty
It
touch
might have
and
felt
go.
like a minute. Your actual run time was 11:43.
That is, I don't remember getting there thinking there's no way it's going to take me longer than 6:40, 7 hours the run. So yeah, I definitely wasn't prepared for that kind of just suffering. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
it
no,
was a disaster.
you were 100% suffering on that day.
Yeah,
I think you had a
yeah,
bit of a bug as well. Did you not?
yeah,
It wasn't
yeah,
just
yeah. I
the
did.
race.
Yeah, it was. I definitely picked something up. I'm pretty sure on the plane, and then obviously doing an event like that is just going to put you in a box if you know, even if you weren't ill before you started. So, but I did kind of. I mean, I obviously enjoyed it because I came back,
Yeah.
and it really did cement. I mean, I still dream every year of doing another one. You know, if I can get healthy, I would definitely do one again.
Mhm.
Um, and it's an event like no other. You know, and the things that you remember are obviously the things that go wrong. They really stick in your head. But and you hear it so many times. But the sort of camaraderie, the people that you meet, the feeling that you have at the time, even in the second year when everything really was pretty much went to plan. Um, it's still you still feel like you're doing it as part of a team, and definitely if you have a good team, it makes a big difference to how your race unfolds as well. Not that I'm blaming you guys for 2015. I'll take full responsibility for that one.
Yeah. Well, I do remember that final that run where you went off well. You had, I think, was it the first half marathon you
20k.
ran? Yeah, first 20K
Yeah,
you ran,
yeah,
it was no problem. And then it
yeah,
was like maybe a couple hundred meters before you turned and puked, and then another couple hundred meters and
yeah,
another couple hundred meters,
yeah.
and then it was
I can
just
actually
watching
remember
the clock.
as you got to that 20k markers, Steve King was sat there in his car, which is one of those everlasting images that you have when you do these events. If anyone that's done it, Steve King just popping out somewhere, sitting in
Yeah.
the back of a car with a microphone and a speaker, and thinking, well, actually, this is all right. I'm going okay. And literally, you take a right turn after that point, and it goes uphill and right back on yourself.
Yeah.
And that was it. It was the beginning of the end. And I have to say, it's good having someone like yourself on the team who's good with numbers because you were calculating all the time how much walking needed to be done to get to the finish line. And you were pretty adamant that it was possible at times. And I was thinking, it's just not possible. There's just no way. Like we're going so slowly and you're going up these steep climbs. And I just think it just can't be possible to actually get there. And you're like, nah, it's fine. Let's go, let's go, let's go, let's go. And we did get there eventually.
Yeah, yeah. And our other two crewmates on that one were Julie and Lucy,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they both wanted to pull you off the course.
yes. I think at one point as well, there was a bit of a miscommunication and there was a big argument. And Julie at the time, she's like, just go for it then. You do what you want. It's up to you. But well and truly sort of given up on us at that point. But you were clear. You had a sound mind, and you were right. We made it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It wasn't so much of the walking time; it was when we could actually get a couple of paces of running in that made the
Yeah.
difference. Yeah,
And the run pace was fine all the time, every time it went. But then it went downhill rapidly every time. There's a brilliant photo of me laying on the floor with some tin foil over me at one point where I'd passed out. And I have got a brilliant photo that a friend took of mine because that went on Facebook and
yeah.
everyone saw it. And he did an impression of me laying on the ground. He just cut this tiny sort of 1 centimeter square of tin foil and was doing this sort of rather pathetic man laying on the floor with a bit of tin foil on him. And I think looking back on it, that is pretty fair reflection. What doesn't kill you?
What doesn't kill you brings you back to do it again another year.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
the
yeah.
second time you come back, You are the champion. You won that second race that you came to with all the knowledge of the course and all the other things that you need to know. Tell us a little bit about that second race. Obviously, things went great. And tell us why. Like maybe like the people that listen to the podcast, they're always like, oh, how do the people that win do it? So maybe sprinkle in a dash of what you did that you found was helpful in making you successful.
Yeah. I mean, I'll come on to this point at the end, but it's that race that I won is one of my greatest regrets. But we can come on to that at the end because it kind of fits in at the end there. But I mean, having 2 solid years of training for an event, just that, and knowing, and then in the second year, knowing the course as well, the nuances of, I mean, we had an incredibly dialed in bike swapping sort of pit stop that we really got that dialed in and we used for Katie, a couple of years after. But I just had such a bank of training. And to be honest, a real obsession and confidence in how I was going to execute that time. When I look back at the sort of training and how I felt and how I was thinking at that time, it was pretty blinkered, really, in terms of, I had this training, I had this strategy, and I just knew exactly what I was going to do. And the thing that I did, I suppose, that was good was I actually took the lessons from the year before and I did make changes. I think it would have been pretty criminal not to. So, I swam slower. Intentionally, we had a really strict pacing plan with nutrition in the swim. I changed to a sleeveless wetsuit, which for me made a massive difference in terms of heat, because I'm not good in the heat. You as my kayaker, we had an absolutely, how many times have you crewed there, blimey? I mean, at that point, you must have crewed 10 times, I would have thought, something like that.
At that 7, point, 8, it was probably 6, 7, yeah.
Was it? Yeah. So, again, having you there, because this is a lake in Canada. If you live in the UK, a lake is maybe a K long. It's pretty much 15K long, I think, maybe 12 to 15K long, I think, that lake. So you're swimming in pretty much a straight line.
Yeah, it's a 12K lake.
12K lake. So, that's a huge lake if you lived in England. And you're just swimming pretty much from one end to the other and then just hooking a left turn at the end. So having a dialed in kayaker who can lead you in the right direction makes a big difference. So things like that, nothing was left to chance. The nutrition, the pacing on the bike. I had better kits. You remember in the first year, my bike fell apart. All my handlebars fell off on the bike course on day 2, and I had to sit on the side of the road and wait for someone had a higher bike, and we just rode this ridiculous bike for the rest of the time. So I had much better kit. I had 2 bikes there, and I also had, and this is the kind of bit of me that's a little bit disappointed in a way, is because I'll probably never be that fit again and in that situation again. I raced to win that particular event. So I had a strategy in my head for where I wanted to put myself each day, just get far enough ahead and then perhaps shut it down to give yourself a bit of a time buffer to win the race, not to go out there and see what you could do and do your best.
Right.
And that's why I have the regret. But that being said, pretty much everything went to plan. I think we had maybe 1 puncture. That was about as bad as it got. And really, it's just, I think learning the lessons from the year before and making the changes, that was the key. I think it would have been crazy to just go out there and do the same thing again. So making those changes, was key.
And at that time, what were you using for nutrition?
Well, yeah. So back then I did do a low carb, high fat diet, which is it's been on vogue more recently. But this was obviously 2015 and 2016. Mm-hmm. And so for all that time, I've been, it's not ketogenic, but it's kind of just above that. So kind of 100 grams of carbs a day, pretty much for 2 years, really. And so I was very, very efficient at burning fat for fuel. And obviously in an event that long, you're not really going into your glycogen stores because you're not going fast enough. It's not really a hassle. So if you're able to eat a high fat diet, I mean, I'm not saying I'd recommend it to other people. It's pretty tedious. I'm not sure I'd do it now. I'm not sure I'd have the inclination, but I really do think it worked. And nutrition was not an issue in the race. I think I was being handed. I had more carbs during the race, during the event. I was having like avocado and peanut butter wraps and stuff like that. So it was much more real food. Mm-hmm. Wasn't really having, gels and stuff like that. It was homemade, real food, really. And I think in an ideal world, if I was going to do an ultra again, I would want to do a high fat diet, but I wouldn't. It's so restrictive to a lifestyle. But again, that harks back to that kind of blinkered view that I had at the time, that I thought that was the way to go, and I think it was. But not that socially fun.
Right. Yeah. And then after your race, your wife Katie came over to do the race as well. And you were kind of coaching her along because you've already done it a couple times. You've got all this knowledge. How much of what you were able to do was suited toward her as well? Like, obviously she's going to do things differently, but how much of what you did were you able to help her with? And then what other adjustments were needed for her as an athlete?
Yeah, so training wise, she followed a very similar plan. I think it's fair to say across swim, bike, and run. She's much more robust as an athlete. She's had a background in strength and conditioning, so she was actually able to be more consistent and probably hold a higher mileage, certainly over running through her training time. But a very similar type of plan, and we had some sort of specific sort of kind of training weekends that I created over the years, where, for example, you'd ride 300k down to the south of England, try and find a hotel to stay in, and then the next morning do like a 50 or 60k trail run, things like that. So I had a set time where I would put that into the program, which really was, if that was in that sort of 6 to 8 weeks out period, you just knew you were ready. And so that things like that she did and was able to tick off. And so, she was in a similar sort of condition, really. Didn't do exactly the same diet. There's a lot of science that for women to go that low carb is not a particularly good idea hormonally, but she was on the lower end of carbs. But she eats pretty well anyway, and she's able to be more restrained than me. If I'm not on a very strict diet, then I'll just absolutely go off piste. Where she's able to sort of keep on that. So a really similar protocol. But I think I still claim that watching that race that year, probably both the men's and the women's actually, but certainly the women's, was one of the most amazing races I've ever watched. To watch three ladies basically get 100% of themselves out on the course every day for 3 days. It was a ding-dong battle, and they were just burying themselves. And so to watch that unfold, it doesn't matter if you're the best in the world or, you're playing in the NFL or Premier League, whatever it is. If someone's getting 100% of themselves out there, it was pretty inspiring to watch. And you had these three girls that year who were just absolutely going at each other. It was pretty inspiring to watch, actually.
Yeah. And who were the other women in the race that were up there at the front?
We had obviously Katie from the UK. It was Suzy, who was American, and Suzy Serpico, I think it was, and she was an American. I think she'd been a pro Ironman athlete for a while, and was a very, very, very good swimmer. And then Ginny Sellers, who was, I think, a Canadian lady. And to be honest, the three of them, I think they all finished within 20, 25 minutes of each other on the final reckoning. And at times on that last run, it was just going back and forth, over 85k. There were times when it was the time distance was sort of toing and froing. So, but to watch that all unfold, it was actually pretty stressful. I have to say, that being my first time crewing, being so sort of invested in it. But at the same time, I genuinely, still to this day, think it's the best and most inspiring sort of sporting thing I've seen. Pretty amazing, I thought.
Yeah. And obviously you're going to come back and crew for your wife. But what is the difference for you between racing and crewing? Because most people who do the race, they do come back and crew because they want to give back. You had to give back, it's your wife, but I'm sure you would have either way come back to crew at least once. Tell me a little bit of the differences between the two.
I think crewing is, I want to say, harder. I mean, obviously, athletically, it's not harder, but if you're on the start line, you're probably athletically fit enough to do the race. So that just then is what it is. Yeah. Whereas the crewing you're doing something every 15 minutes for 3 days, basically. Because you've got to be in a certain place. You've got to make sure that you've got stuff ready. You're cleaning the van out at the end of the night. You're repacking things. And your athlete is reliant on you. And so whilst it's a pretty amazing thing to support that person, it is a little bit stressful to be making to feel. I mean, it depends probably how much you care, but to feel that you don't want to get these things wrong. And you might remember that, like when Katie was racing, she gets this sort of wacky race brain on where she just won't concentrate and she's not thinking about eating. And if you don't force feed her, she's not going to stop and eat or drink.
Right.
And you're not on day one. You're not eating for day one. You're eating for 70K into day three. You've got to have a plan for that, and so you can't miss food. And so your athlete does become at times very, very reliant on you because their brain is not always functioning at 100%. So it's a very different thing. And whereas for me, racing, okay, maybe not in the first year. After a while, I was not in control of anything. But certainly in the second year, I felt in control of everything. I could pretty much just do what I wanted to do. You're just swimming, biking, and running.
Yeah.
And if you like that sort of thing, you're on holiday, just swim, bike, and run all day. So it's a very different feeling. But yeah, I think I would recommend to anyone to crew. It's I imagine there's a lot of people that crew many more than 1, 2, 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, certainly. Yeah. In this audience, for sure.
Would you like to have an incredible experience like Ross? Well, you can. Learn by crewing champions from around the world at the Ultra 515 Worldwide Championships this August in Whistler, British Columbia. Some of the European and American athletes are looking for crew members. Maybe you want to help them out. We are still accepting athletes for all of the events as well, including the Ultra 515 Canada, for athletes who want to race the same course as those in the Worldwide Championships. Go check out ultratrifestcanada.com for more information, and you can contact me personally with any questions or to find out how you can be a crew member.
One of the things that I found really fun when we met and we were doing these races is afterwards you put together some videos, and I was an early subscriber to your YouTube channel. I think I was like number 13 or something, and you're in the hundreds now. Hundreds.
Oh, viral.
Yeah. And one of the first ones was obviously our famous losing the GoPro video.
Oh yeah, that's a brilliant video. That is amazing. Yeah, there was a small GoPro, this cube. And I used to enjoy making videos. I still do every now and then. But so Larry had this cube GoPro, left it on top of the car. So all you see in the footage is them driving off and this cube just rolling down the road into a ditch. And then I don't know how long it took you to find it, but it was quite a while, wasn't it?
Well, no, actually, the story is a little bit different. Okay. You see it roll off, and we assumed it was in the ditch, and we spent about 15 minutes looking for it along the side of the road in the ditch.
Yeah.
When we finally decided, hey, we got to get ahead because Ross needs his nutrition, and he's going to be pissed that we're not at the next stop.
Yes.
So we were ready to jump back into the van, and as I run up to the van, it was sitting on the back windshield wiper of the back window.
Yeah. It rolled down the window. Yeah, I remember now. God, yeah, that's a blast from the past.
So I'm sure that's probably still on your YouTube channel. I'll put a link to your YouTube channel and maybe pin that to the top for a while, and people can go check that one out along with some of your other.
That is a funny video. Yeah, actually, the videos of when Katie did it, I would say are actually very good videos, and especially actually if anyone's going to do an ultra, I would say they're very good videos to watch because they actually give a bit of insight into sort of the feeding, the handovers, the bike change, all those sort of developments. Actually, they're pretty good videos. Actually, even if I say so myself, me and my 15 now subscribers probably. Yeah, they're worth a watch.
They are definitely worth a watch. So we'll put a link there. Again, but watching some of your videos because you're still doing them. 8 years later now, you're still doing these. I'm wondering because you constantly have that camera in your left hand while you're out riding. Do you have some kind of special physio that you do to compensate for this with your right holding the bike all the time? Like, how do you do that? And they're great shots, by the way. Great shots.
It feels like a joke in there somewhere, but like to answer the question seriously, it's amazing now that, it's pretty hard to better your phone than, in the old days, you needed a camera or a GoPro and all these sorts of things.
Yeah.
Whereas now, we do these trips around Europe that I'm sure we'll talk about. But actually, the footage and the quality of images and memories that you're getting from just your phone now is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah.
So I've diverted away from answering the question in a rude way, but
And so that's what you're using. You're just using like a selfie stick with your phone on the end.
no, not even a selfie stick, because the modern phone has got it's got three lenses. One is an ultra wide,
Mm,
so you can just hold it at arm's length.
right.
I've been experimenting. I did a reel last week. I'm not super social media savvy. With one of those 360 cameras, and it stitches out the stick.
Right. Yeah.
And so I did a ride. I was on training camp last week, and it got like 20,000 views. I'm a
Yeah.
viral sensation. But what you can make with that, because it records everything, and then when you get back, you just decide where you want it to have pointed after the fact.
Right.
Absolutely amazing. And that is on a giant selfie stick that it then cuts out of the image.
Yeah.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah. That's some great technology there.
Yeah. I love a gadget.
Oh, I remember that. Yes, you had a lot of
Yeah,
gadgets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into some of those biking trips that you've been doing that you're making videos for these days.
Yeah.
And I know you've taken a couple of larger ones over the last couple of years. You did the Bradford to Barcelona first. Was that your first big
Yeah.
one? Tell us
Yeah, well,
where,
we did.
for those that are geography, illiterate about Europe.
Yeah.
Maybe
Okay.
tell us a little bit about where Bradford is, and then how many places you have to get through to get to Barcelona. What's the distances? How many
Yeah.
days are we talking here?
So what happened is that now I spent half the year in Mallorca. You meet people who are basically living their lives riding bikes, or as professional athletes or videographers, whatever it is, but in the sporting world. And I met a guy called Jack Schofield, who's become a very, very good friend of mine. And he has a sports photography and videography company called 226 Photography. And he makes the videos for a lot of pro Ironmans, their YouTube channels, Ruth Astle, people like that. And him and I just sort of got on with well. And one day he was coming onto the island. He said, "Oh, I need to do a 250k training ride. Do you want to come?" I was like, "Yeah, sounds good." So we did this ride. And then that was sort of in like a September time or something like that. And then someone sent me a link to a route on the island here, which is 500k. And if you do a lap of the island here, it's 300k. So about 180 miles. So this is it. It went all around the edge, back in. It was like a sort of fossilized snail shell to get 500k
Oh yeah.
and do this ride in a day. So we did it on December the 27th or something, as part of the Rafa Festive 500. So we just thought, right, we'll knock it out in a day. So good fun. So we did that. And off the back of that, then it was like, right, what do we do next? And I'd always had this idea of riding from my house in the sort of south of England to Mallorca and seeing if that was possible. And I'd floated that idea to him, and he was like, "Yep, perfect. I'll map it out," because he's obsessed with maps and routes and Strava, just absolutely, like, truly obsessed. It's quite incredible. So we decided to do Bradford to Barca because it just sounded better with the alliteration.
Yes.
And Bradford is in the north of England. So it gave us a couple of days of cycling from the north of England down towards London, around the edge, and down to Portsmouth, where we then got the ferry to Caen, which is kind of northern France,
Yeah.
and then cycled pretty much a straight shot through Paris, all the way through France, down towards that kind of, well, Barcelona, basically, just after the south coast of France. And so I think that was about, I think from memory, it's about 2,300 kilometers, whatever that is in miles, 12, probably 1,500 miles or something. So we did that in 9 days, and we just, it's self-supported. It's about 280k a day, about 170 miles, something like that a day. There's no point to it. We're not looking to achieve anything. It's just we feel like doing it. And so there were three of us on that first trip: me, Jack, and another friend, Sam Proctor. He's a pro Ironman guy, and actually now my coach. And we just ride. And Jack takes photographs all day, so we've got this bank of amazing images. The people that you meet, the places that you go, the middle of France was just absolutely stunning. I really fell in love with the middle of France, the food, and we just find an Airbnb, skip in that each night, get up in the morning and start again. So it's not particularly grandiose. It's just pick a start point, pick a finish point, and pedal, really.
Well,
It's a lot of fun.
I can guarantee you, the people that listen to this podcast, they're drooling right now at the idea of being able to do that. You know,
Yeah,
that's
I'd
the
recommend
lifestyle.
it. I really would. I really would recommend it because I think the way we do it, look, obviously, okay, we're fit enough to ride, 180 miles a day, but you're not actually riding that fast. In summer, you've got a lot of time, so you're just pedaling, and we have a small bag on the back of our bikes. There's this company called Tailfin now that makes incredible rack system, so it's firm on the back of your bike, so it doesn't wiggle. So you can just put all your stuff in there, off you go. But there's no stress, there's no worries. You just pedal. So I would say to anyone, if it's 50k a day, 100k a day, riding an A to B is always good fun.
Right.
It's always better than doing a loop. That being said, in the second year, so obviously you do that ride. We got here, and that was that done. And then you're already thinking, right, well, what do we do next year?
Exactly.
And so I don't know how the second year idea came about. I really can't remember. But the second year was a circle around Europe, which was 3,500 kilometers. So what's that? About 2,000 miles, maybe a bit more. So we did 12. I think it was 12 days, 3,500 kilometers, 15 countries, a big circle around Europe. I mean, that was madness, absolutely madness. Just see that. And one of the beautiful things about Europe is that you don't have to go that far, and you're changing food, language, cultures, architecture. Right. So you're seeing so much different stuff every day or every half a day.
Well, you went through 3 countries in the first day, didn't you?
Yeah, I think we did. Yeah, because we started in Basel, Switzerland, and I think we got 50 meters and we were into France, where suddenly everything was about. You went from paying $8 a coffee to $2, because Switzerland is a bit of a pricey place. But some days we did 3 or 4 countries, but 15 separate countries. But some of them we dipped in and out of a few times.
Right.
But it was a hell of a trip.
Yeah.
Hell of a trip. It was.
Can you just give us the quick rundown of the route? Just like bang it off for us.
I thought you might say that. So because as per usual, having a great friend like Jack is you don't need to worry about the route. So we've done 2 years now, and there's not been a wrong turn in 2 years.
Nice.
So the second year we did was myself, Jack again, and another friend of ours, Paul Lunn, who's a serial world champion at 70.3 and podium, I think, at Kona. So a fit guy. But so we did Germany, Switzerland, Liechtenstein, Italy, Slovenia, Croatia, Hungary, Austria, Slovakia, Czechia, Poland, the Netherlands, Belgium, Luxembourg, and France. So apparently it was 3,500 kilometers.
Here is a clip from Ross's YouTube channel from that trip, and I will cut in some more as the show continues.
Okay, welcome to the bustling metropolis that is Basel. We're on the outskirts of Basel. Unfortunately, it's Sunday evening. Jack's gone to take the car to be parked. Nothing is open. We've got no food. So this is a slight logistical oversight. However, we're going to track something down, because we've got a nose for this kind of thing. Stay tuned for what happens next in the adventures of the Three Stooges. So this is currently looking our number one bet, mainly because it's the only place we can find that's open. And why would you not eat some raw seafood the night before the start of a 12-day adventure?
So on day 2, actually day 1 we finished at Davos in Switzerland. For all political fans out there, Davos is where they host the G7 summit. But more importantly, it's pretty high. It's about 18. I mean, it's not crazy high, certainly for North Americans, but it's 1,800 meters high. And I have a history of not being good with altitude. I'm all right if we go to altitude and come down.
Right.
But as soon as we got there, Same thing happened in Andorra last year. Oh yeah, I forgot. Last year we took a diversion into Andorra. That was pretty crazy. And I was super sick there. So the same thing happened in Davos. So I was thinking, oh my god, this is only 1,800 meters. And the next day we're doing the Stelvio, which I think goes to something like 2,600 meters.
20,
thinking,
27, 28, yeah.
Is it? Yeah, I knew it was pretty high, and it's a 25k climb, and it's a big day of climbing to get there. And obviously, you're riding with all your stuff, and I was pretty nervous actually about it because I was just thinking I was so sick on night one, but actually I was fine because we just got to the top and take your photos and then over the top.
Right.
But actually, we decided, given it was a pretty big ride to get there, we took all our kit off and stacked it in a bush. Really, we did not want to do a 25k climb up to 2,800 meters with these bags as well. And we started the climb, and it was probably 30 degrees temperature. It was really, really hot. Then about a third of the way up, colossal hailstorm. Then the sun came out again. Then it rained, and then you get to the top, and there was 6 to 8 foot of snow. The road had only been open a week, and it was just an incredible sight. Only motorbikes up there at that time, but that's a big climb for day two.
Yeah.
But something I've always wanted to do. That's a real bucket list climb.
Yeah. And that's in the Giro
again.
d'Italia, correct?
Yeah, Giro. Yeah, that's a Giro climb.
So you're saying it was only open for a week. At what time of year was it when you went?
We went, it must have been, I think it was August.
Yeah.
But they'd only opened it. I mean, maybe they closed it for some kind of crazy snowfall at that time of year, but it was literally more than 8 feet of snow. I mean, it was quite cycling through these banks of snow where it goes like that. It's like I think there's a ride on Zwift. If you've ever ridden Zwift, there's a ride there where it cuts through the snow, and it was like that. These banks of snow like that.
Yeah.
It's probably in one of those videos actually. So I probably did make day two. Probably about the last one I made.
Yeah. No, I saw where you were climbing Stelvio and stashing your bag. So yeah.
Okay.
There is a video there.
Pretty special this. Interesting way to start a day. Just literally straight out into the climb. It's beautiful. We're tapping it out and it's glorious. It's mad. Dreamy. So we just came down from 2,400 meters down here. Quick stock up with water. Straight into another, I think it's a 6k climb, then a 7k climb, bit of lunch, and then it's a Stelvio. So taking it pretty steady today. It was pretty cold on the descent, but wow, it was pretty special. Third pass of the day done. Oh, one more to go. And it's only the Stelvio, I mean, come on. How bad can it be? Yeah. Oh, views. Views for days. Views for days. Okay, look how light our bikes are looking. We've just stashed our bags in here before we do the Stelvio because we're soft.
Yeah, so I couldn't lie and say we didn't stash our bags.
No. which also meant that you had to loop around though. You couldn't just keep going.
It took, I think it was a 60k loop to get back to our bags.
Yeah. So
when
you're climbing that high and you're dealing with altitude and stuff, and there's switchbacks and all that kind of stuff, what is the descent like on that ride?
All I can remember is it's just so cold.
Mm-hmm.
Because obviously we don't have that many clothes because we can only carry so much.
Right.
And so you've got the sort of lightest version of a jacket that you can get away with. So it was really, really cold. And because of the switchbacks, it's probably a half an hour descent, I would have thought. And you're struggling to use the brakes because your hands are so cold. So in the end, you're sort of creeping down and then you're worried about bits of ice and things like that. So the descent was actually pretty tricky. It's not like you're rewarded with a rip-roaring descent that's nice and dry and you're sweeping through these bends. It's pretty nerve-wracking actually descending when you're that cold.
Right. Yeah. And
Good
I know,
views, though.
in one of your videos, I also saw where you're on these tight mountain roads and there's like cars whipping by you about an inch away. It's like race cars.
That was a Stelvio.
That was
Yeah,
Stelvio?
yeah.
Yeah, f***ing cool, bro. They come past so f***ing close. Tiny f***ers. They're so close. 14k down, 10 to go. It's so steep. There's this first little respite. Very, very steep. Bottom 10k as well. 33 degrees. So it's nice to be in the cool now. Spectacular.
I keep meaning to send that to the company that basically you have these people who are renting a Ferrari for the day,
Yeah.
and there's probably 20 of them. You see them in the video.
Yeah.
They obviously don't know. They've never driven this car before, and it's obviously wider than they think it's. They're so close to you. They were buzzing us on the pass, but they're in a line. So they can only get sort of 20 meters, and then they've got to stop to go around this hairpin because it's quite steep, and they're all sort of stuck behind each other.
Yeah.
So we were getting into good verbal jousts with these guys, thinking, what are you doing? But that was pretty scary because they were just so close, buzzing you each time. Italy is not a place to ride your bike. I would say it's possibly the worst place I've ever cycled for how unsafe it is.
Yeah.
Sorry to any Italian talent. Actually, I know a lot of Italians, and they would agree with that. It's horrific.
That being said, I also saw in one of your videos you said you gotta love the Europeans because they do things especially well when it comes to bikes. I think you were referencing like numbering switchbacks.
Numbering switchback. There was also, and to be fair, the one I can remember, we were on a cycle path for over 100 kilometers, so 60 plus miles of immaculate cycle path. Yeah. And I mean, probably with good reason, because if you get off the cycle path on the road, they're going to get you. It's but the infrastructure, and actually, one thing I really noticed this year was hundreds and hundreds of 50 plus year olds on e-bikes.
Yeah.
Out there enjoying the road, enjoying these paths, in small groups, just having a real nice time, and it makes you think. I know not everyone likes e-bikes. I don't actually really care, but to me, it seems like you've got a lot of people there that are perhaps having an experience that they wouldn't do if they didn't have an e-bike. Right. And across Europe, there are hundreds and hundreds of people on e-bikes. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the top. It's a bit we all know. But it's still 7k away. It's very wet and cold now. Bit of a change. Four and a half k to go. Doesn't sound that much. When you've done 20. Whew. Big hailstorm. Sun's out now though. This is special. Horrible, but special. Stelvio done.
Yeah.
That was absolutely ripping. Well done, dude.
Easy.
Yeah. Nice, huh? Look at this.
When I'm watching your videos, I could confuse them for biking videos or they could be foodie videos. I'm not really sure which track you're on there because it seems like you're eating a lot of pizza. You must know where all the best pizza places are in Europe.
There's a lot of pizza. Pizza's very, very efficient, very easy. Actually, on this trip, I did on Instagram stories, I was doing reviews each day of the different supermarkets around Europe.
Oh, yeah.
And I have to say, like, I'm not particularly big on the social media thing, but in terms of, because I suppose most people are at work and it gives them sort of something a little bit interesting to look at through the day, and you'll just keep cycling through these different countries. And so I was doing these reviews of supermarkets, and people were loving it. I was giving them a grading for sort of how efficient they were, how easy it was to get served, how what the choices were, things like that. So yeah, it's definitely a food. It's food with a bit of peddling in between. Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption.
Well, let's move on to another one of your races that you've been doing. Just because, again, I saw this on your YouTube channel, and it sounds like a kind of a cool event. The Rafa Prestige. Can you tell us what that
Yeah.
one's all about? And this one also had like 20,000 views. This video that I was watching.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're a sensation.
Yeah, I don't even know. Yeah, so one of the great things about living in Mallorca is pretty much every weekend, all around the year, there are events going on, and it might cost €10, £10 or something to do a 7K sea swim. There might be a 12K night run. There's all kinds of events going on, and they're really well priced and really well run. And Rafa each year do a gravel. Um, they don't call it a race. Let's call it a gravel event,
Mhm.
and it's typically 90 to 100 miles, and you do it in teams of four, and you only get given the route like 24 hours before the start time, and you've got to stay together in your four. Um, so when I did it last year, we were in we were in a pretty good team, and we were did pretty well, and like the pace was pretty on from the start. It was a proper ride.
Mm.
Whereas this year I did it with some friends, and we once you get a puncture or two, then it's just a nice day out. But you're off road riding 90 to 100 miles of gravel, cool aid stations, but that sort of again that team feel is pretty cool.
Mhm.
Definitely a bit like the ultra sort of vibe. You have to stay in your team of four. Well, I suppose you could ride off if you were a douchebag, but really, you've got to stay in your four. And I like that aspect of it. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And those aid stations look pretty fun and well fed.
Yeah. Yeah, some of them were pretty crazy. I think they had a lot of the Rafa, the guys who work at Rafa in fancy dress, music, yeah, plenty of food, all sorts of stuff. Mechanic stations, big party at the finish with a load of beer. This year we actually won best dressed because we did it in fancy dress this year, so we won a trophy at the sort of beer party afterwards. So yeah, it's done in the right way, but at the same time, there are some people absolutely hammering. I guess it's a bit like Fondo these days. You've got people there who are basically pros, and then you've got people who are just having a good day out.
Right.
And it's up to you to sort of decide where you want to be on that spectrum. But yeah, there's something cool about doing it as a team and being off road because you've also got a mix of skill sets. We had a girl in our team this year she's a professional cyclist. She just signed for Movistar, but she only had a road bike, and she could only get like 30 mil tires on. So she did it on a road bike with 30 mil tires. I don't know how that was even possible. Absolutely so scary. I had the
Who was
gravel
this?
bike with
What's her name?
an English girl, Claire Steels.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's lives in Mallorca, and yeah, she's a pro cyclist. But there's no way. Yeah, I'm on a gravel bike with 44 mil tires with like 40 psi in it. I'm still struggling.
Yeah.
She's sort of dainty through these little lanes. But yeah, good fun. Good fun.
Yeah. So what is life like for you in Mallorca? Like you're from the UK, but you've recently like taken up residence there, kind of half the year, whatever amount of days they allow you into Spain, I guess. What's it like there? Why has this happened to you? Is it the cycling lifestyle, the people you meet? Is that what drew you there?
Yeah, so really for me, life changed during COVID. In that before that day, before that event, if you like, all of our meetings, work meetings were face to face, driving in the car, 30,000 miles a year, seeing clients all day, every day. And then suddenly everyone realized that we didn't need to do that. And you could sit on Zoom like we're doing now and have actually more communication with people more often at the drop of a hat. And it just sort of made everyone feel like, okay, that's fine. It's not, every now and then we need to have the face to face meeting, but actually, Zoom is fine. It's more efficient. We're all happy. You don't need to come to my office. I don't need to go to yours, all that kind of thing. So
Mhm.
it really meant that all of a sudden I could work from anywhere. And I thought, well, if I could work from anywhere, Mallorca is my favorite place in the world. How do I make that happen?
Mm.
Now, obviously, Brexit, dear old Brexit, made that a little bit more challenging because we have the 90-day rule here, which is any rolling 180 days, you can only be in Europe basically for 90 days,
Mhm.
and it's rolling, so it gets very complicated. But I've actually got residency in Spain now, so I can come and go as I please. Um, So yeah, but I tend to spend 6 months here and then 6 months in the UK, or doing one of these trips, cycling, whatever it is. But yeah, it's just really it is that dear old phrase, like-minded individuals. Everyone here is riding a bike, they're running, they're swimming in the sea. I've got a group of people I swim with in the morning at 7 a.m. It's a lot of pro athletes come here to train, so you've always got people to ride with. Ineos are here at the moment for 2 months. Team Sky as was. A lot of the Ironman triathletes come out here, so it really is a mecca for that sort of cycling and triathlon world, really, because the roads, the infrastructure is just it's first class.
Yeah. And you have had the opportunity to make friends with so many of these people. What kind of tips have you picked up from some of these pro triathletes? Who have you met? Who have you trained with? What kind of stuff can you say that you stole from them that you can now pass on to my listeners?
Yeah, I think the main thing I've just done a 2-week camp with a bunch of Germans. I don't want to name drop, but yeah, in training with these guys, especially when you're doing a sort of 2 to 3 week camp, you really are learning, how they approach things. And the thing I would say, which probably most people know, but are they doing, is you'd be amazed at how much easy stuff pros do and how easy they go on an easy day. They're not hammering it every day. And I think what a lot of people would find is if they turned up on one day, you might be able to do that day or that session. But what these guys are doing, and girls, is stringing these sessions together time after time after time. And I can tell you, doing 3 weeks of stuff, it's hard work. If you're doing 20 to 30 hours a week, they might have their physio on camp, for example. They might have the coach come over for a few days to check on them and do a testing protocol, for example. But they're just about consistency. They're not doing anything that crazy. Like I think when you have an idea of pros, you think they know some sessions that we don't.
Right.
It's the same kind of stuff, really. The thing that I'd say is different is when you ride with pro cyclists. They are doing what they can do is pretty crazy in terms of like power numbers and how often they can do high intensity work. That's pretty crazy. I mean, it's just it gives you a real understanding of the level of difference between normal people and these guys. And like this camp I've just been on, it's pretty amazing to be. I'm a solid athlete, I guess, but to turn up every session and be the worst athlete by quite a long way. Like we had a joke with the coach. I had to have a lane on my own in the swim, because you just can't keep up. It's just absolutely. I mean, it's very motivating and it's pretty cool. But really, it's not just a little difference. These guys they're phenomenal athletes. You've got to respect what they do.
Yeah.
And how hard the work is.
Yeah. And do they ever pick on you and like, hey, come on, Ross, it's your turn up front. Let's go. Like,
I'm all right on the bike. I can sort of hold my own on the bike if it's that kind of thing. But I mean, I know that I'm there for morale. Let's put it that way. I'm not there to teach them how to swim, bike, or run. That's for sure. But I don't think I can bring a little bit of value in my own way.
Yeah. So now you've been spending time training. Still, you're still an athlete. You're still looking to do some things here in the future. You mentioned that you've picked up a coach now who you train with as well. So what do you have coming up in the future for your events?
So I've finally decided. I mean, I've basically since Ultra actually, I've basically been injured since then. The year after that, I was training to do race across America as a solo artist, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
And probably 1 or 2 months out from that, I had a back problem and it just wouldn't go. And I've basically been stuck with that ever since. And so I haven't been running really for a long, long period of time. But I started swimming again earlier this year. And I thought I did a 70.3 as a relay with some friends, which I didn't even know was a thing. But that was good fun in Austria. I think it was Austria. Yeah, Austria. So that was a lot of fun, and it really made me want to get to the start line again. So I had a few whiskies one night and decided to enter Ironman Texas, pretty much on sort of foolish optimism that I'm going to be able to start running again.
Okay.
So really, it makes no sense. But I have managed to string, a few weeks together of running, and then I've got more pain again. So I'm sort of going to have to treat it a bit carefully. But I'll put it out there. I want to win my old man age group at Ironman Texas is my goal this year.
Oh,
Yeah,
a bold statement to put out in the public.
you've got to put it out there.
What
Got to put it out there,
what
Larry.
age group are we in now, Ross?
40 to 45.
That's a competitive age group.
It is a competitive age group, but that's the beauty of going to America. I don't want to get caned by you like that. You can win your age group. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's still, you're still probably going to do under 9 hours, I guess, but it's probably a good half an hour slower than doing it in Europe.
All right. And so if you win that age group, will you be attending the World Championships?
If I won my age group, which obviously is a long shot, would I go? I really don't know, actually. I'm not super motivated by that, to be perfectly honest. But I do think I've got quite a lot of friends who are coming to Texas as well, actually. And so I can imagine how getting whipped up into a frenzy would be quite fun. But the thing the cost would be a bit eye-watering. That's the thing that would. But I think if you've got a big group of you going, I could see how that would be pretty fun. I think. But yeah, certainly not. I'm not. That's not why I'm doing Ironman again. To be perfectly honest.
And why did you choose Ironman Texas?
Well, so I was intoxicated at the time, and I sent a message out to a few people and said I fancy Ironman Lanzarote because it's a very hard course and it's in sort of May, back end of May, so it give me time to do some training. And the messages I got back were like, well, we're already going to Texas, so you might as well hop on that bandwagon. So it all got a little bit out of control, and there's probably 10 people plus going to Texas. So worst case scenario, I'm going for a swim bike in Texas.
Swim bike. Yeah.
I'm really excited about it, and having a coach again and following a plan, and it's motivating. I like it.
So are you in full training mode now? What kind of mileage are you doing these weeks?
I'm just trying to be consistent at the moment. So I'm just doing sort of time-wise, I'm doing sort of 20 to 25 hours a week. Obviously now I'm sick, so I'm not sure how long this will take to get over. But I'm pretty consistent with that. Which I don't know if that sounds like a lot or not a lot. I'm not really. I think I sort of lost perspective on that. But to be honest, when you're in Mallorca, 20 to 25 hours is not that hard because at the weekend you can bang out 2 5-hour rides with a run or a swim as well. You've done 12 hours at the weekend, so it's not that hard to accumulate that time. And that's part of the reason I got a coach actually to stop me doing too much, because when I get bored, I just want to go and ride the bike all the time.
Right.
And the other thing I've realised, and again, this is sort of where I respect these pro guys so much, guys and girls, is that starting to run again. The tax, obviously I'm old as well, that doesn't help, but the taxing nature of that impact on your body is so different. So whereas when I was just cycling all the time, training every day, you can pretty much do what you like. You're not really got that impact. Okay, some days are hard with VO2 sessions or what have you, but once you start running, that's a whole nother world. So I'm sure my overall time will probably come down. We'll see. I'm all talk.
Oh, I'm sure you're not. I'm sure you're not. And are you planning any future bike tours with your buddies? What's going on in that realm?
Yeah, so this year we've got so we had a big talk after this year's ride, because so obviously the first year was say 2,500 Ks, the second year was 3,500, and we sort of thought, right, where are we going with this? This is getting like, it doesn't need to be bigger and better and harder, and why are we doing this? So we had a chat, and what we decided was the ideal distances would be to do 16 days where you do 250k, 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 100k, and the 100k is in a big European city each time. And so we're going around Europe again. I actually don't know exactly where. I'll leave that to my learned colleague. But we've also got, obviously not everyone has the luxury of doing 16-day bike trips, but quite a lot of our friends could do 4 days. And so what we're doing is teeing up the start and end of each of those 4-day slots is in a city with an airport, so people can fly in and fly out and swap in and swap out as we go. So this could be pretty cool because that gives you sort of fresh impetus of new people each 4 days.
Right.
Yeah, so that's the idea. I think we're starting in Bratislava, I think,
Oh yeah.
which we did go through on our trip this year, and without a shadow of a doubt, the best looking people in the world.
Ah, yeah,
Very,
yeah, yeah.
very keen to get back there.
Yeah. I went
Men and women.
after I visited you in 2016. And I went on my
Yeah,
little European tour. I went through there as
yeah.
well.
So you
I
can
was
probably
driving.
attest. Okay, but did you see good looking people?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty staggering. As I say, men and women. You know, we're a broad church here, but they
Yeah.
were everyone is just good looking.
Yeah.
Pretty incredible. So we thought that's a suitable start point. Yeah.
Oh, that sounds excellent. That is fantastic. I mean, the fact that you have been able to move to your favorite place in the world and spend your days with like-minded people doing things that you enjoy every day and come up with your own little adventures like this, maybe moving away from the organized races and dipping into those every once in a while too. Sounds like you've got the perfect balance going on. How do you manage to afford to do this lifestyle though? What's the job? And how much longer is that
Yeah.
job lasting?
Yeah, hopefully not too long. So I am still working, but I have sort of less clients now than I used to. So I do financial advice.
Hmm.
But I think part of it is making a proactive choice to decide to do this. So, you know, it's easy to say it's not that expensive to live here, but it is and it isn't. You know, property prices are high and it is an expensive island. But you can certainly cut your cloth accordingly.
Hmm.
You know, and I sort of I wouldn't be driving around in nice cars now and things like that. I just prioritize just being here to me is the goal.
Right.
And we have it's an interesting thing here. Me and a lot of my friends have a joke about we call it like a race to the bottom. Like each week, like who's been able to do the least work. Whereas when I'm in the UK, it's like okay, who's climbing the corporate ladder fastest? Who's the best? Who's making the most money? Here,
Right.
it's more about who did the least this week because then you're winning because you had more time to do other things. And it doesn't have to be biking. You know, the hiking here is amazing. There's a lot of like water sports, all sorts of stuff. But
Mhm.
having a better lifestyle. And if I'm at home, I mean, on the 31st of December this year, we've rounded up. I think there's 6 of us who are going to ride a lap of the island, which is 300k.
Mhm.
Um, you know, if I'm in England, I couldn't find one person probably to ride 300k with me, especially on New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
It's just sort of it's what people do. They want to do fun things. They want to be outside.
Yeah.
So for me, I just prioritize that over you know, being successful.
Yeah, well, successful enough to do what you want for your lifestyle.
Yeah,
That's a great
yeah.
balance. Yeah. All right, Ross. Well, thank you very much for coming and being my guest, and happy holidays to you and to Katie. And
Likewise.
you know,
Well, thank you for reminiscing.
yeah, it's been great to catch up again. We should do this more
Yeah,
often when it's not just for the
yeah,
podcast. Excellent. Thank you.
brilliant.
Hey, if you liked what you heard today, please tell a friend and be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We'd appreciate it if you'd rate and review the show while you're there. Drop the names of the people you think we should interview and we'll get in touch with them and make that happen. Thank you for listening to 515, the Ultra Podcast, a production of 55 Enterprises. Now really, go subscribe now before you forget.
I'm definitely, I'm 100%. I'm about to go and look at that YouTube video of it rolling down the back of the car. That to me, you've made my day. I've totally forgotten about that. That's just so good.